Hello, everyone. A very good morning to you all. My name is Harleen, and I'm your host for today's session. I hope you're all having a pleasant morning and are now excited and ready for the brand new informative session of the Masterclass series organized by the Institute of Product Leadership. Before I start today's insightful session, let me give you a quick introduction to the Institute. The Institute of Product Leadership is Asia's first business school providing accredited degree programs and certification courses in product management, product leadership, data science, design, strategy, and leadership. The institute has partnered with three universities in India and the University of Houston in the United States. The institute was founded in 2012 with the singular mission of creating 10,000 product leaders in the country. Ever since, the organization has designed and delivered various programs in collaboration with various institutes, universities, and corporates to the senior working professionals to help them make career transitions into product leadership. The Institute has built and developed a community of over 3,700 plus successful alumni leading the product, data, and design teams across the world. We're also knowledge partners for 250 plus organizations worldwide. You can find out more about the Institute and the programs offered on our website. You can find the link for the same in the chat window. And for those of you who have joined us via LinkedIn, please check the comment section. Today's session is on the power of design thinking, innovate with impact. Once our speaker for today presents his insights, we'll open up for questions. Please keep your questions ready. You can post your questions on Zoom in the Q&A section. This session is being streamed live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So, viewers on any of these channels, please feel free to post your questions in the comment section and we will share them with the speaker. You guys shouldn't miss out on this opportunity. You should take this opportunity to engage with our esteemed speaker with some good and intriguing questions. All right, with that, let me kickstart this session by introducing and welcoming today's speaker, Mr. Subodh Kar. Subodh Kar is a seasoned product leader renowned for architecting and scaling global energy management solutions. At present, he drives growth for a flagship digital product revolutionizing motor management at Schneider Electric. Prior to this, he spearheaded the development and expansion of automation products within the paper and pulp industry at Honeywell. Also, with a solid decade at Honeywell, he has excelled in conceiving, launching, and managing enterprise grade business intelligence products. He has been twice honored with the Exemplary Coach Award from the Institute of Product Leadership. He is also deeply dedicated to both teaching and learning. A very warm welcome to you, Subodh. We're thrilled to have you with us today.
Thank you, Harleen.
Handing over the session to you.
Okay, thank you very much for having me over. Really excited to be up here on a session. It's been quite a while since I did my last masterclass with IPL, and I'm considering this as a good way to end the year. Right. So thank you, Harleen, once more for the opportunity, and welcome everybody. Good morning. Glad to see 34, 35 participants on this session here. If you're here on a Saturday morning, this must be really important for you, considering that it is a weekend and then you also have your year-end holidays coming up. I want to appreciate and thank each one of you for being here to learn something new here. So welcome again. Good. So what we're going to talk about today is this elusive topic called design thinking. You might have heard about it in various forums. It's used as a buzzword in most of the corporates, right? And it lives up to its promise. That much I can tell you. I mean, it might be a buzzword, but it lives up to its promise. So today, what I'd like to do is introduce you to this concept called design thinking, what it can do for you, what it cannot as well, and present to you some of the most common processes of design thinking. There are various ways in which design thinking is taught at different schools. So I'll try to give you a flavor of that as well. And what I'll also do is I will share the slides that I'm going to be presenting. What I'm going to be presenting today is going to be a small part of the entire deck of slides. The slides in itself can be considered as a book, and you can use it as a reference material to go through the process of design thinking for yourself. Okay, so with that, I'd like to start the session with a poll. This poll is basically for not just for product managers or for engineers, or this is for everybody. Yeah, but it might be a little focused to product managers and stuff like and people like who are in the engineering space. But don't worry about it. Don't worry about the title that's mentioned in there. Just think of you as a problem solver, and if you're in a position where you're solving certain problems, then this poll is for you. Okay, so Harleen, do you want to bring that up?
I've brought it up. I hope everyone can see it on their screens. The question reads, as a product manager, designer, or problem solver, which aspect of product development do you find most challenging? And the options are identifying customer needs, prioritizing, managing stakeholders, and cross-function collaboration. We see some people have started to vote.
Right, like I said, this is for everybody. Yeah, anybody who's a problem solver. And when I say problem solver, it need not be in your it could be in your personal space too. It need not be just professional, but in your personal space as well. Okay, so look at it from that perspective and choose your answers. Okay. Okay, seems like everyone has answered. Excellent, thank you. Harleen, are the poll results available, visible for everybody, or?
Um, One second, I think now that I end
Ah,
the. Yeah. Yes, I think the results should be visible now.
perfect. Okay. As you can see, the top two problems that people generally find is identifying customer needs and prioritizing, and probably followed by that is cross-functional collaboration. And the last one I see is managing stakeholders. Okay, and this is um, the way I look at it is that generally managing stakeholders is the most difficult thing to do. If you are able to manage stakeholders in the most appropriate way, then identifying customer needs and prioritizing, this you will anyways learn. But managing stakeholders requires a lot of soft skill, which is generally not taught in any of the business schools in general, right? Or it's not, forget about business schools. It's not taught in school. It's not taught in colleges during your early education, right? So now design thinking basically helps you see it from that perspective, that at the end of the day, what you're solving for is for people, is for human beings. And if you keep that perspective when you're trying to solve your problems, the approach towards solving problems will be very different. And this is what design thinking, the core, let's say, the core heart of design thinking is all about. And we will go through the details as well. Okay, so I'm going to thank you for participating. I'm going to share my screen and we get started. Okay. Right. Okay. Is everybody able to see my screen? Harleen, is my screen coming across?
Yes, Subodh, your screen's visible.
Okay. All right. So, like the title says, design thinking, it's actually design rethinking. Yeah. Now, the word design thinking, what it really means is that you can design the way you think itself. Right now, thinking in itself is a process. There's a certain approach that you can take to your thinking process. Thinking is not just about just having hundreds of thoughts and then trying to work upon something. There is a structured way in which you can put your design, you can put your thinking together as well. So design thinking is that concept, is that approach that will help you solve your problems, any kind of problem, in a very creative manner. Okay, and that's the reason, that's the terminology from where design thinking comes from. That's how it emanates. Okay, so today what we'll do is there's a bunch of things that is available, right? I mean, as material. But what I wanted to do today was to give you an introduction to design thinking with a very simple example of a restaurant, and also introduce you to the design thinking process, the one that I connect with the most. I'm going to be presenting that with you. So basically, what you see in this blue box here is what we will be focusing upon today. But what I'll also do is, after this session, I'll share this material with you, which will get you access to the rest of the things that are there in this content as well, right? Chapter number 3, and so on and so forth. All of this will be available for you. And this is a read through material. The way it's been put together is that you can read through and understand. There's a lot of text in there. You can read it like a book and understand the rest of the concepts. So today, the focus will be to get the basics right. And then the details, there's a whole lot of material. There are lovely books, which I will name a few as well, which you can pick up and hone your skills on design thinking. Okay, so with that, let's get started. I'm talking about going to talk about introduction and what design thinking is all about and all of that. Um, so if you go by definitions, if you were to talk about let's say a design thinking definition, it's an approach for creative problem solving. And when I say problem solving, I'm not limiting it to products, or I'm not limiting it to your professional jobs. I'm telling that design thinking is something that's applicable for your life. You can design your life by thinking the right way, be it your professional life or be it your personal life. Design thinking can help you solve some of your problems in the most creative ways, right? The crux of design thinking, like I mentioned, is human centered design. The crux is that we are talking about designing something for humans. We are so all the methodologies, the tools, the techniques that you will find in this content around design thinking is structured keeping humans in mind. Okay, that's why we call it human centered design. This is the backbone for the design thinking methodology. Okay. All right. So now when we say design thinking, you might have heard of other kinds of thinkings too, right? You would have heard of critical thinking, that probably you would have heard if you're attending interviews, then, or you might have seen job descriptions which says, hey, the candidate should be able to think critically, should have critical thinking skills, etc., etc. Should be able to have should be able to have lean thinking, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So here's a quick comparison of what design thinking is as compared to the other ways of thinking, right? And these 4 ways of thinking is the classification happens based on 2 things. One is the problem, the other one is the solution, right? So if you see the y-axis, that's the problem, and the x-axis is the solution. Either you can have a known problem or an unknown problem, or you could have a known solution or an unknown solution. Okay. Now, when I say a known problem is something that you have already encountered. You are living in it right now. It could be professional, personal, right? You are going through that. That's a known problem. An unknown problem is something that you don't know much about. All you have is probably assumptions, and you anticipate certain things going wrong. For instance, if you're getting into a relationship, you don't know what that relationship is going to be like. I'm not saying you should look at relationships as problems, but you don't know what's going to come through. If you're going to if you're going to start a family, you're going to have a baby. Yeah, you don't know what problems are going to come your way. It's unknown. Correct? That's the difference between known and an unknown problem. You're trying to launch a new product in a completely different market. You've created products for, let's say, the India market, and now you want to launch the same product in, let's say, the US market, and that market is unknown to you. You don't know what challenges are going to come your way. So that's an unknown problem. And then you have solutions and known solutions and unknown solutions. Known solutions are, you know that this is my problem and this is the solution, which has been defined in the past, which has worked out well for us, which has been tried, tested. Those are your known solutions. And then you have unknown solutions, basically solutions or problems for which you don't have any solutions at the moment. So you don't know what that solution might be, and you need to figure out a way to get to that solution, right? So you apply lean thinking when your solution is known and your problem is known. And when I say lean thinking, you're talking about Six Sigma, Kaizen, the agile way of working, Scrum, root cause analysis, and all of that is applied when you have problem and solution. Both are known. That's when you apply these ways of thinking. Okay? And then you apply critical thinking when the solution is known, right? You think you have a solution, but you don't know if the solution will fit the problem or not, right? Because the problem is not very clear. I have a product for the India region. I know this product solves this particular problem, right? My solution is known, but now I don't know the market. The market is unknown to me. So there you can use critical thinking. There are various ways. I've listed down a few here. There's theory of constraints, and there is the theory of inventive problem solving, which can be used to develop critical thinking skills. And then you have lateral thinking. Lateral thinking is where the problem is known, but you don't have a solution. In most cases, when you're working in a corporate setup or in your jobs, in most cases the problem is known to a certain extent. Right? Again, I would say somewhere between 60% of the problems that you solve are known. The remaining 40% is what is open for innovation. So that's a known problem, but you don't know the solution. Then you can use concepts like the 6 thinking hats, the blue ocean strategy, or scamper. These are some ways of lateral thinking. So when does design thinking kick in? Is when you don't know the solution and you don't know the problem too. Okay, you have a very vague idea about what the problem is. So you want to launch a product in the North America region. You think that there is a very big market there. You think you know the problem, but somewhere in your mind, you also figure that maybe I don't know the problem so well. And the solution, definitely not. Now, that is where design thinking will come into picture. Or design thinking can also be used when you've tried ways of testing and you've tried ways of known ways of solving a problem don't work for you anymore. Right? You know that there's a problem and you know that there's a solution, and you're trying to fit them in all possible ways. You've tried everything that you can do around it, but it's not solving your problem. That's where you can use design thinking. Okay, this is an important slide because a lot of us confuse design thinking with critical thinking and especially with lean thinking. Okay, to make it even more simpler, lateral thinking is used when you have solutions, and design thinking is when you don't have any solutions. You don't know what needs to be done. So again, when you're in your jobs, you will probably end up using design thinking when you maybe you know the problem to a certain extent, but you don't know the solution completely. Yeah. Okay, so this is what design thinking is as compared to other ways of thinking is. Okay, so there are some critical aspects that you need to understand when we talk about design thinking. Some key tenets, some things that you need to keep in focus, and I do that with an example. Um, but before that, stepping back, um, why do we why design thinking now, right? Why are people talking about design thinking? Why is it coming up so frequently now? 10 years ago, nobody thought about design thinking. 5 years ago, when I proposed the concept of design thinking to somebody who has been in the industry for a very long time, for I think 20-25 years, they said, "Oh well, why do we need design thinking? I've read about design thinking. I think we are already doing it," because they didn't understand why it was actually required. Why design thinking? So many books around design thinking are coming. Why it's getting a lot of importance these days. So the first and the foremost reason why design thinking is required today is our world is filled with products. Yeah, humankind has been building all kinds of products, and they're building all kinds of services, and so it's filled with multiple products and services for the same problem. So now what's happening is humankind is moving from products, or rather has moved from products, services, to experiences. Two products solving the same problem. The product that wins will most probably be the one which offers a much better experience for their customers. And now, experiences is very different from the product itself. And experiences need to be designed. Okay. And you can't follow the standard process of building a product to design experiences. It requires a different perspective, it requires a different approach. And that's what design thinking offers, a different way to make sure that you can create a different experience for the product or the service that you're creating today using design thinking processes. Okay, so that's the first reason why design thinking is required in today's world. The second one is that um, markets have changed drastically. Markets the people's needs have changed, have become more dynamic in nature, changes very often. There are multifaceted problems that come into play when you're thinking about solving a problem as compared to 10 years ago or 15 years ago. The problem itself is multifaceted. There are too many things, too many variables at play. Now this requires you to take a step back and move away from the standard ways of solving problems, and that's where design thinking comes into place. Digitization plays a very important role. Last 15 years, pretty much everything has become digitized, right? The advent of mobile phones, the advent of technology, everything is digitized today, pretty much. And that creates more complex problems, more unknowns for us. Therefore, a different approach is required, which is design thinking. Customers and have started becoming more knowledgeable and more restless. The more the knowledge, the more you become restless about things. Again, pushes you as a service provider, or as a product designer. It pushes your limits, and it pushes you towards more unknowns. That's where design thinking is required. There is a lot of emphasis on experimentation now, right? Companies are looking for people who have the tenacity to not jump into solutions right away, but to be able to experiment with things and then propose solutions. right? Now that's where design thinking comes into place too, because design thinking talks a lot about experiments. Yeah. Over the last 20 years, last 2 decades, business models have changed drastically. Some of the business models that existed 10 years ago no longer exist. Some of the business models that existed 10 years ago have now merged and become a different business model altogether, right? 10 years ago, probably nobody thought about a subscription business for watching videos on TV. But today we have that business model with Netflix and Amazon and all of that, right? Completely different business model. So new unknowns, right? New problems to solve. Requires a very different perspective towards solving that problem, and that's where design thinking comes. So the standard ways of thinking didn't help. Yeah. And most importantly, but not the least, is markets throwing up surprises. Right, like I said, the markets are very dynamic today. The markets are much more global today, much more flatter today. But at the same time, the markets are much more localized as well. Local needs came in. I'm not sure if you remember, probably 10, 15 years ago, there was this very famous book called The World is Flat, right? Where it said that, hey, you know what? We have to start designing global products now. Right, it's not about designing product for just one region or so. We have to start looking at things in a much more global way and going global, and exploring different markets, and not just the big markets like the United States or Europe for that matter. This was like 10, 15 years ago. And so everything started becoming globalized, but now things are again starting to become more localized. Now it's like, hey, enough of globalization. Now let's create products for the local needs. That's catching up again now. So you see how markets are changing. They're throwing surprises. Something that the market wanted 10 years ago probably is not required now. So there's a lot of surprises that come in the way, and therefore requires a new way of looking, a new way of thinking, and uh, you can't have rigid ways of let's say critical thinking or lean thinking or lateral thinking, but you need to figure out a way to be um, iterating your thinking itself. Meaning, design thinking is not a set process saying, okay, you do A, B, C, D, E, and you will get this outcome. Design thinking itself is constantly in evolution. So it basically talks about how we need to be constantly looking and relooking at the various parameters that runs your business and adapt your thinking accordingly. So that's what design thinking is bringing to the table today. Okay. All right. So first and foremost, we start with people. I said, I did mention this, that design thinking is a very human-centric approach. Yeah, and people is at the crux of it. So I take the example of a restaurant, just to make it simple for all of us. Um, and there's some text here. If you wish to read, you can read it. But I'm going to basically explain the same thing in verbally. Is that when you're trying to put a restaurant together, right? You think people, right? Imagine you're putting a restaurant together, and the first thing that you think is, okay, I'm going to have customers, and to these customers, I have to provide certain products, and my product is nothing but the food or the menu that I'm going to offer them, right? Um, and these products uh, will be made of commodities, meaning I need to have my raw materials, which is the ingredients, etc., etc. And then I have to think about the how these ingredients will come together, what will be the quality, how will I price it, how will I present it to my customers, and if I do all of this right, then I have a business going for me. Right? That's the way you start thinking. But at the crux of all of this is people. You do this all around the people. You will probably think about, okay, I'm going to be launching this in this particular region, and this region, the people that I know in this region are probably would love to have continental food, right? It's a cosmopolitan city, or it's a rural town. What do you actually mean by city and rural town? All of that is, at the end of the day, the people and their habits and their likings that will need to be taken into consideration when you're putting your business together. So it's all about people, first thing. Second thing is that you will need to observe patterns, right? Now, when you say patterns, you will take the commodities, that is your ingredients, and then you will have to have people working for you. Like, let's say, you need to have chefs who are going to be putting these commodities together, these ingredients together, and using their skills and their experience, etc., and their expertise. They'll be able to create, product, which is the dish. And if these dishes are really good, if people connect with that, then you probably have a business going for you. At least the basic things are taken care of, right? I know whom I'm building the product for or the service for. I have a right set of people, and I have a certain dish that these people, my employees, create, and my customers love this, right? So there is a set pattern to this. Okay? I've identified that as a pattern. Okay. Third thing is perspectives. When you say perspectives, is it enough if I just do that? Is it enough if I just create beautiful dishes, great tasting dishes, and present it to my customers? Will that be enough? No. The next thing I have to look at is, okay, how do I, create the service for them, right? Customers will come to my restaurant. I have to be, I have to take, and I have to take orders from them. Right, I have to ensure that I have the right set of people who can welcome them, show them a place to sit, make them feel comfortable, right? And then I need to make sure that I can take the orders, I can collect payments from them. I have to start looking at the service aspect of it also. It's not just the product now, and then looking at the service aspect of it as well. Now, so now I have a cook, a chef. I have the right ingredients with the best quality. I have the right. I think I have the right menu and the dishes as well. And I have placed my restaurant in a great place, in a proper location that I feel is the best to attract my customers. And I believe that I have a business going on here. Then what happens is that another all my customers start going there. So now I have to start thinking about uh, competitiveness. I need to start thinking about competition. I need to start getting worried about a competition. Yeah. Now the real trouble starts. Right. And this is where design thinking can bring in newer dimensions of how to address this particular problem. Okay. So that's perspectives. Now I might have multiple ideas. I might have I might have a great idea for the menus or the dishes that I want to serve. I might have multiple ideas for, let's say, the way in which I will present the food, the way in which I will collect the orders, the way in which I will deliver the orders. I might have the various. I might have great ideas in regarding the seating arrangement and how my customers are welcomed, the quality of the service, and all of that. Yes, but can I implement all of it? No, I have to balance it out. I have to balance my customers' needs with what I can realistically do. Right. And at the end of the day, I have to make sure that my business also stays afloat. right? What purpose does it serve if I have a great business going on? I mean, when I say great business, I have customers coming through, and I'm doing everything. I'm serving them the right dishes. I'm giving them the right service, blah blah blah, and all that. But if I don't make any money, then my business doesn't survive. So what is required is focus. I have to make sure that I maintain the right kind of balance between what my customer needs versus what I can do. Set the right expectations in such a manner that I'm able to satisfy my customers, and I also have a good thing going on for me from a perspective of running a business. These two are important. One cannot get ahead of the other. I can't be too business minded that I lose focus on my customers. I can't be too customer focused that I lose sight of my margins or the money that I have to make. Correct? So that requires focus too. Right? So what I'm actually sharing when I say people and I'm saying focus or I'm talking about perspectives, these are different, let's say, compartments or aspects that you need to consider while thinking when you're designing your thinking around a certain problem that you want to solve. And then you have iterations. I didn't put any definitions for this. Iterations is experiments, trying new things out, going through the grind of making mistakes and learning from it, learning from the mistakes, feeding it back into my business and doing it and trying something new out, and then going through those iterations. There is no end to iterations. Design thinking works on the principle that you never get to a perfect solution. You never get to a stage where you say, okay, I've solved all my problems now, and now I can run my business. You never get to that stage. You're always design thinking expects you to be in an iterative mode, expects you to be thinking about making experiments and iterations and constantly being on the move in a structured way. Okay, so that's iterations for you. So we need to think iterations too. And then finally, you need to think about delivery as well. Right? It has to deliver value at the end of the day. Whatever you're offering, product, service, um, um, has to be, so there should be certain outcome that you deliver to your customers, right? That outcome is called as value, which is a combination of the product, the service, and the experience that you offer your customers. That is what you call as delivery. It's not just the product or not just the experience. It's the product, the service that goes along with that, and the experience that you offer, which is the delivery. So you need to think about value as well, which is a combination of these three things. So now, this restaurant example, the reason why I took it is it's probably the most simplest example that everyone can connect it. And what we'll do now is we will go into a step lower. Okay, inside, what else do we need to think about when you're designing your thinking? What else do I need to consider when I'm designing my thinking? Okay, we spoke about commodity, we spoke about experiences, service, product. We spoke about all of that, considering the customer centricity, and all these aspects that I talked about this restaurant business come up with their own set of problems, right? So you will face problems when you're trying to bring customers in. You will face problems when you're trying to decide what dishes to put in your menu and whatnot. You will face problems when you decide on whom to hire and how to hire as a chef, right? You will face problems when you're trying to hire employees to work for you. You will face problems when you're trying to design the service, how you want to offer the service to your customers, how you want to pick orders, right? How you will face problems when you're trying to design the experience that you want to create for your customers as well, right? Amidst all that, you also want to make sure that you want to increase certain things from your business perspective. First one being revenue. Correct? There is a misnomer or wrong thinking that when you employ design thinking, when you apply design thinking, it will generate more revenue for you. Right? It may or may not. It may or may not. So design thinking is specifically applied to specific problems that you want to solve. So if your problem is, I have this restaurant, but it's not generating any revenue, then design thinking will focus on, okay, revenue is your problem. You need to generate more revenue. So let's look at how can you generate more revenue. Okay. If let's say retention, keeping people in your organization is a problem, then design thinking will specifically focus on how to retain people and how to keep people working with you for a longer period of time. You can focus on that, and you can apply certain concepts and tools of design thinking that can help you with that. Right. So, for instance, if you want to increase revenue, then you might think about, okay, uh, how can I increase revenue? Revenue can be increased either by increasing my cost, um, or rather, I have more people come over. How can I have more people come over? I can have more people come over if I have to offer some additional value. But before that, I need to figure out why more people are not coming to my restaurant. Is it because they have certain problems? Is there certain shortcomings within my restaurant, and that's why people are not coming? Right? What else can I do to bring more revenue into the restaurant? Can I offer cooking classes? Can I encourage parents with the small kids to come to my restaurant more often by offering them some way by which their kids are taken care of? Right? So you start thinking in those directions. So revenue is one such aspect that you want improved. Okay. So what else do you want to improve? Obviously, you want more customers to come in. Now, more customers coming in doesn't mean more revenue, because it's not just that. Just because I have 100 more customers coming in doesn't mean that I might make more revenue, because customers coming in, I might more customers coming in. I probably need to spend more money to maintain those customers, and therefore I might still not be making more revenue. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I have a constant increase in the number of customers coming into my restaurant. I want to have a constant, let's say, flow of customers that needs to happen, and therefore I want to make sure that what I'm offering, my product or my service, is constantly interesting for new people to come into my restaurant, for repeated customers. Right. So it's important that happens. Just a second, guys. Okay. So so um, so I want more customers coming in as well. Right. That's another thing that I'd like to do. The next thing is I want to have more innovation happen. Correct. I want to say, I want to define. Um, I want to define a different way in which my menu is offered to my customers. Can I have a restaurant where there is no menu card at all, right? But instead, I tell my customers, these are my ingredients, and you choose what dish would you like to have. Right? I'm thinking out loud here, right? The regular way of thinking would be, what do you mean by a restaurant without a menu? How can you have a restaurant without a menu? But I'm saying, shed that way of thinking, but look at it from a different perspective. What can I do different? That might be much different from the normal way of doing things. What if what if there's no chef? right? What if I have a customer, I have an option where customers can just choose the ingredients and or just choose the dish, and probably there's, I don't know, there's a machine which does the job of putting it all together and dishing it out to my customers. Or what if uh, I'm able to create an experience where customers can come and cook for themselves, right? It might be counterintuitive, right? Customers come to a restaurant because they don't want to cook at home. They come there so that someone can cook and serve for them. But I'm trying to think here innovatively. What else can I do different here? You must have seen that video that was going around about a restaurant. I think, I don't know where, probably in India or in China. I'm not sure, where they have a kind of what is it? A trolley belt running around the restaurant with the dishes on it, and it goes from table to table, and it will stop at your table, and you can choose what you want from that. It'll just keep going around it. An innovative way of presenting something interesting. I don't know if it really added value or not, but maybe it was a nice way of attracting customers to come and eat at that restaurant. Of late, you will see a lot of restaurants where you have specially abled people cooking and serving food. Right? That's another way of invoking empathy in your customers to come and eat there. Right? So it invokes emotions. It invokes a feeling of doing goods of doing good for the society, by eating food at a place which is served by especially abled people, right? So that's where innovation kicks in, right? So design thinking helps you start thinking in those angles too. Then you start thinking about employees, right? Generally, employees are one of the probably the most often neglected set of people when it comes to an organization, and in order to have happy customers, you need to have happy employees, right? So how do you have happy customers? In order to have your a customer happy, you need to make sure that your employee is happy, right? You need to make sure that your waiters at a restaurant are being nice with their customers. They're being helpful. They're not being a snob, right? And for that, you need to make sure that your employees are fully engaged and they are happy doing what they're doing, right? So you got to think about, okay, how do I keep my employees motivated? How do I make sure that they stay? How do I make sure that their unsaid needs are also taken care of apart from a salary? What else are they looking at? It could be their career, it could be a growth, it could be recognition, appreciation. How do I ensure that that every person in working for me is happy doing what they're doing, is doing what they're doing willingly, right? So you start thinking about those aspects too in the context of this particular restaurant. And then you have your margins. You can't take your sight off your margins, right? At the end of the day, restaurant, if you're not making profits, then it will impact in some way or the other at the end of the day on your customers. You'll probably hike your prices, and your customers will not be very happy, right? So you want to make sure that your business is viable, your products are viable, the services that you're creating is also viable. You need to think of that as well. Therefore, what you try to do is, okay, let's figure out if there are ways to cut costs, if there are more efficient ways of creating these products or services. You start looking at that too, right? You start looking at how can I digitize my processes? How can I automate my processes? These are all ways of increasing your margins. right? And so you start doing that as well. So you need to keep that in mind as well. Your margins is something that you need to keep as well. And then finally, today, something that's taking a lot of importance is social responsibility. So in today's business, you're not thinking about just creating a product um, without thinking where is it sourced from, is it healthy, is it unhealthy, is it sourced in an ethical manner or not, is it harmful for the nature, is it harmful for the environment. You start thinking about all of that too. Your social responsibility also has become an important requirement, which was probably not part of all businesses, especially restaurant businesses, 10 or 15 years ago. And maybe so you make a conscious choice that I will not serve non-vegetarian food in my restaurant because it contributes towards greenhouse warming, global warming, and therefore I'll not do that. So you start thinking from that perspective too. You start thinking if the meat that I get into my restaurant is coming from is it sourced from the right kind of people who I know for sure will not cheat me and will not cheat my customers as well, is of the great quality as promised. Are they having fair business practices? Are they paying their taxes? Today organizations have become much more cognizant towards these aspects of social responsibility and doing businesses, right? We're talking about conflicts of interest. We're talking about making sure that we are not following any unethical, illegal business practices. These have started becoming very important, and these are important because these all create contributes towards the experience for your customers. And again, when you talk about design thinking forces you to think through all these aspects, and not just product service, but the experience. And you look at it wholesome from a wholesome perspective, how it contributes towards the society. Yeah, that's social responsibility for you. So then the ultimate question is, um, which area of business we are trying to affect, right? So this is the question that you need to answer. So, like I said, design thinking is not about okay, I'm going to here to solve all my problems using design thinking. No, design thinking works best when you have a specific, let's say, business area within your business, an area within your business that you want to focus upon. So it could be customer retention. It could be about quality of your products. It could be about it could be about social responsibility, right? So design thinking basically helps you when you get to that aspect of it. So you need to make sure that you're able to answer this question first, and then apply design thinking concepts. Okay, so we are at 11:55 now. We have I think another hour to go. Harleen, do we take a small break here for a couple of for about 4 5 minutes? Then we
All
come.
right, we can do that.
Okay, let's take a small break here. In the meanwhile, process whatever I've shared so far. Come up with your questions, because after this, I'm going to be sharing some of the different ways in which design thinking happens, different school of thoughts of design thinking principles. That's what we're going to talk about in about 5 minutes from now.
Okay, guys, we'll take these 5 minutes to just, serve as a little break, refresh ourselves. We will begin promptly again at 12. So stick around, stay around.
and I think we can get started.
Okay, that's great. I'll just stop sharing my screen.
Thank
There
you.
we are.
Okay, so this is where we stopped. The ultimate question: which area of the business are we trying to affect? I'm referring to business, but like I said, you can apply it to your personal lives too. So, which part of your personal life do you think you want to impact, and you want to apply design thinking to solve the problem? Right? You could do that too. So there are several approaches. This is one approach that I'll talk about, which I'll probably my content that I have to put in here is following this particular approach that I'm sharing in here, which talks about the following steps, which is about creating a business hypothesis, a customer perspective, a design challenge, an ideation, a prototyping, testing, impact delivery, and finally a design thinking process summary. Okay, this is the process that I would normally recommend to follow, because it is much more compartmentalized, and there are specific questions that go into each one of these stages, which will help you arrive at, say, a business hypothesis, or to gather a customer perspective, and then to define the challenge that you're trying to solve over here, and then you get into the ideation phase. There are other school of thoughts too. This one is a very popular one. It's also called as the double diamond design thinking concept, or the design thinking principle, uh, primarily propagated by the Stanford University. Why it's called double diamond? Because it looks like two diamonds placed one beside the other. And where it starts is, you start with the problem. A vague idea of the problem is kind of available for you, and you start doing a problem discovery, meaning you have a high level problem, and then you start discovering it to find out to gather more insights about the problem, to figure out if this is the right problem to solve or not. Right, before you start building the right solutions, you need to start thinking about, is it the right problem to solve or not? Is it a problem worth solving? First of all, is it the right problem? Right, and that's where you spend a lot of time in discovering, and you gather that insight into the problem. Yeah, and then you start slowly narrowing down towards that specific one big problem that you want to solve. Right, you could have 100 of them, but you have to narrow it down and say, okay, this is what will create the maximum impact. So what you do is you focus. Remember that principle that I talked about, focus? When you're solving a problem, you will have many mini problems or sub problems behind that problem. You got to make sure that you can narrow your focus down and bring it down to a specific problem definition. That is the goal of the first diamond here. Right, and then, so you see, you first diverge, and then you converge towards a problem definition. So now you have a clear cut definition of the problem. So one of the unknowns has been taken care of. Now you start thinking about solutions, and when you think about solutions, you again diverge. You basically go in all possible directions with no limitations, no constraints on your mind, and start thinking about, what solutions can I bring into place to solve this particular problem. And then you follow a process where you start running experiments, right? And you deliver those deliverables of those experiments. You listen from your customers. You find out, you gather insights from them, and finally, what you come down is to that particular solution that you think is the best solution. Okay, so this is one way of approaching design thinking. Now, the other one is this. Okay, this is another popular way of representing design thinking, where you talk about inspiring people first. When I say inspiring, meaning you are trying to define a vision for what you're trying to solve, the problem that you're trying to solve. Then you empathize and define. When I say empathize and define, it means that you're talking to customers, you're figuring it out, you're gathering insights from them, and then you ideate, you come up with certain ideas, you prototype, you experiment with those ideas, you test them, and then you iterate that. See, you see these reverse arrow marks going back to ideation and going back to empathize and define. You go back again to do that. So, meaning you do iterations. You don't just do it once and arrive at a solution, but you iterate it. And then you finally come out with a certain solution, which you start rolling it out to multiple customers. Now, this one and the double diamond, more or less, are, what to say, you will find a lot of similarities in the approach. The one that I'm going to talk about next, you will find it more aligned towards the double diamond process, but a little more in detail as to how you go through, let's say, a discovery phase or a explore define phase or a development test phase. How do you go through that? I will walk you through that phase, that those aspects of design thinking as well, right? So this is the one that I was talking about. I break it down into three parts. One is the understanding, the design, and the impact delivery. Yeah. So we're talking about understanding. As you can see, you're trying to define what is the business hypothesis. Yeah. You get your customer's perspective, and you clearly design the challenge. You clearly design or define the problem. Quite similar to the double diamond. You define the problem there. You think about what is it that I'm really trying to solve here, right? The right problem. Okay. And then I get into the design phase of designing the right solution. Okay. So that's where my ideation, my prototyping, my testing comes into picture, and my iteration keeps happening here in this phase. And then finally, I deliver an impact. I do an impact delivery, which solves probably the biggest problem for my customer, right? And I come back again, because then there's probably another problem that I need to solve. Or if my impact delivery has not really created the impact that I was supposed to create, then I come back again to my understanding to see if I really understood what my customer wants or not. Okay. Now, the beautiful thing about design thinking is that it is a process led by asking the right questions in each of these phases. Okay, let me repeat that. Design thinking is led by asking the right questions for each of these phases that I have highlighted here. So you need to know what questions to ask in order to arrive at a business hypothesis. You need to know what questions to ask in order for me to gather the right customer perspective. You need to know what kind of questions to ask to be able to define my challenge the right way, the problem the right way. What I'm going to do next is to basically walk you through some of those questions as well. Now, I can't stress enough upon the importance of asking the right questions, be it your professional life or be it your personal life. I don't know if you have observed this, but if you're in a job, and if you have noticed your senior executives, the senior leadership, they are extremely well at asking very specific, focused questions. And that is a skill that they have honed over the years, is something that they've gathered over the years. Asking the right questions. Because if the right questions are asked, it will do two things. Either you will get the right answers back that you look for, or it will trigger the other person to start thinking about the right things so that you can get to the right answers. And that is what helps us make progress, be it our personal life or be it a professional life. We should be able, considering the situation, we should be able to ask the right questions. There is a beautiful book called what that? The Book of Beautiful Questions. I think it's called The Book of Beautiful Questions by a person named Warren Brenner, if I remember it right. Warren Brenner, The Book of Beautiful Questions. And there he gives you a list of questions that you can ask for different aspects of your life, be it leadership, be it your personal life, uh, when you're in a crisis, right? Beautiful book. You should refer it. You should probably own it too. A great reference book. I go to it when I have at times of my personal conflicts. I go there and I try to see if there are any specific questions that I can pick up from there and ask. Right. So this is just a little bit of gyan around asking the right questions. Okay. So if you see the design thinking process that I shared earlier, the detailed one, it starts with defining a business hypothesis, then gathering customer perspective, defining your design challenge, and then going into the ideation phase, right? And then you go from ideation phase, you go to prototyping, you go to testing, and then you have impact delivery too. And each of them has its own subsections that you need to be aware of. The content that I share today will contain the details for each of those sections, but we will not go through as part of this 2 hour session today. It's 2 hours is way too less for me to walk you through all of it, but it is self-explanatory. As you read it, you will understand. So let's talk about business hypothesis. Yeah. So the first one is about defining business hypothesis, and what you see here highlighted in pink are the questions that you need to be asking in order to put your hypothesis together. Okay. Okay. So the first question that you need to consider is, okay. The first question that you need to consider is, what are the activities or processes we'd like to assess to find out where the current problems occur, right? Who is relevant to these activities being problematic? Who are the people relevant who need to be, involved for these activities for the state that they are in? Yeah. What are those activities? Why are those activities there? What kind of business goals are they achieving? Why do we need to achieve these business goals? What is the underlying long-term motivation of this business leaders? So you see how these questions that are listed here is helping you identify a broad perspective of the vision of the problem you're trying to solve. You're talking about who is involved. You're talking about why they are involved. You're talking about why is it important for me to solve this problem, right? What are the business goals behind it? Or what are my personal goals behind it? What parts of are not really working for me? You start defining that. By answering these questions, you start defining that. It's not easy to gather the answers for all of these. And this is not an activity that you perform alone too. You need to do it as a group, as a team of people who are trying to solve the same problem. You need to do it together, and you could consider these questions to do it. Okay, so like I said, by the end of, if you get the answers for these questions, you refine them, you will have a very clear idea about what your business cares about, why are you trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve, and who are the key stakeholders. This is the first step towards stepping into getting to know the problem a little more better. So that's your business hypothesis. Then comes customer perspective, right? So now we're trying to bring in, okay, this is my internal thing. Your business hypothesis was internal. Now I go external. I start thinking about my customer. So the questions are, what are the key problems and needs of our end customer? Very simple, straightforward questions. Which of the hypothetical activities and problems were correctly or incorrectly assessed? Right? So you are now thinking about, you have a problem, or at least you think that is a problem. And now you're talking to a customer and you're trying to figure out from your customer if these problems really exist, or if it was just a figmentation, it was a figment of my mind, or are these assumptions. Only a customer can tell you. Yeah, you start talking to them and try that. How do we quantify the insights we gather? Once you quantify the insights you're able to gather, then you can measure them too. You can track them, right? So that's why you need to quantify the insights. You will get to know how big these insights are, how big the problem is. For instance, you might gather an insight which says that, okay, I spoke to 100 customers and 75% of them use this particular word, frustration. They use the word frustrated, right? Now that tells you that it seems to be something that's really frustrating my customers. They use this word. Why? In what context? In the context of this particular problem, in the context of this particular feature, they use this word. So now when you're quantifying it that way, then you know that from a customer's perspective, it is a big problem worth solving to. Then you need to also talk about, when you're talking to your customers, they might not be the end consumers. There could be somebody else who's probably the end consumers. Or you might figure out that there are several other people who are involved who need to be reached out to define a wholesome customer perspective. Yeah. And what method should we use to gather the research data? How do you want to gather the research data? Right? How do you want to put it all together so that it becomes meaningful for you? That those are the questions that will get answered here. And the main goal of this stage is the validation of your hypothesis, which is this is your business hypothesis that you've made. Now when you talk to your customers, you're validating if what my hypothesis was, what my assumptions were, how true are they, how close are they to what my customers thought process is. So you get a very comprehensive outlook on what your customer thinks, and also you get a comprehensive outlook on who really are your customers. You get that information from this particular stage. You will get customer perspective. Then now you have your hypothesis, you have your validation from your customers too. You put them together and you start defining your challenge. You start designing the challenge. Right? Now you start thinking about what is the key problem that needs to be addressed. This was my assumption. This is what my customer said. I put them together. Okay, now the extraction that comes out of that is the key problem that I need to address. Now there could be multiple problems. How do I prioritize the problems? We start talking about that. Which of the problems are key to the business goals fulfillment? Remember, I talked about focus and balance. I need to pick and choose the problems that I want to solve. Right? I don't want to get derailed by thinking too much about the customer and not thinking about my business problem. At the same time, I don't want to be just thinking about my business problem and lose focus on my customers' problems. Right? So I have to bring that balance in. So that's why you see these two questions are together: business goal fulfillment and the problems that are key to the customer experience. I need to bring a balance now. I need to make sure that these go together. Then I need to define the problems. Many times we lose sight of the problems because we don't define them accurately. We're not able to put them in words properly, or we're not able to put it in a very simple manner. We end up putting it in a very complex manner that nobody can understand, that someone has to put in a lot of effort, requires a lot of cognitive load to understand the problem itself. So forget about thinking solutions, but understanding the problem itself. Yeah. And then you also think about what is the root cause of the problem occurrence. I don't have to say it, that when you think about a problem, you need to also think about what is causing that problem. What is the root cause of the problem, right? Because at the end of the day, if I fix the root cause, then the problem also gets solved, right? So these questions will help you define your challenge. Maybe you'll come up with a statement which says, we figured out that this is a problem. This is what is frustrating my customers, and the root cause of this problem is so and so and so. And because of this, my business is impacted with this many customers leaving, or my revenue is dropping over a period of time, and so on and so forth. Now that becomes your design challenge. That is your design challenge. That is what you need to start thinking about in terms of, you start ideating to figure out, how do I solve this particular design challenge? That's when ideation kicks in. You move to the next stage now, right? Here you start talking about multiple solutions, which is the best and why, prioritizing solutions, which one do I prioritize, right? Which of these ideas has the biggest potential of addressing the challenge? Which is the solution which is simplest to implement? Very important, right? It is important that you can pick up a solution which is simpler and has a larger impact on the problem. Why simple? Because it should take less effort, less money. I should be able to put something together that takes very less effort and very less money, but can solve the problem in a very big way, in a very effective way. Not a big way, but a very effective way. Yeah. And I start thinking about, do I have enough detail for each of these solutions in order to address its complexity? So I need to figure out my own way of classifying what is the detail required for each of these solutions. Do I understand the complexity of the problem or not? Okay. And your goal is not to arrive at just one solution. Your goal is to arrive at multiple appealing solutions. There could be some trade-offs between one solution and the other. Maybe in one solution, it might be a little more expensive as compared to other, but then the potential of the reach of customers is much higher in that. Whereas in the other one, maybe it's a cheaper solution, but the reach for customers is probably a little more lesser compared to the earlier one. But depending upon the balance you want to bring in, depending upon constraints such as budget, people, effort, and time, you might want to choose which is the most appealing solution for you, which is the most practical approach and the most pragmatic approach to solve the problem. So you think about that when you're talking about ideation. That's what happens. That's what happens here. And then you get into my favorite part, which is prototyping, right? So when you're talking about prototyping, largely today uh, you will see digital products, or you will see physical products. These are the only two products that you can think of: digital and physical. And prototyping for each is a different way. You do it in a different way, exciting ways. This is where technology kicks in. This is where innovation kicks in. You bring that all without losing sight uh, uh, of the experience you want to create, right? You want to remember that at the end of the day, your product or service differentiates you from your competitors by the experience that you create. So you want to make sure that you pick those prototypes which can create the right target experience. You think about, what kind of tools I want to use, what kind of materials do I want to use. If it's a physical product, you will think, okay, do I want to go for 3D printing, and should I do something like that, or can I go with the if it's an electronic product, can I go with a simple what is that you have these pre-manufactured boards, electronic boards that you get, you could use that. You might want to think of, if there's any other way of creating a dirty and cheap solution to prototype, while still considering experience, and also considering the fact that it solves the problem for my customers, right? I also need to know, where is this prototype going to be used? Where will it be used? In what environment is it going to be used? Will it be on my phone? Will it be on my desktop? Will it be in some remote place where there is no internet? Will it be a physical product which I will use underwater? I don't know. You need to be very clear about where it's going to be used as well. So this will help you gather more insights. And then testing, right? So once you're performing once you perform testing or as you go through that process, you start figuring out what should be improved for the solution. More insights with your customers. You engage your customers also during the testing part of it. You figure out what solutions work for you and what solutions don't work for you. Yeah. You also talk about how do I gather insights from these experiments, right? What do I measure? What do I measure? What can I measure? Can't I measure? How will I measure it? Right? What elements of my solution are we trying to validate? You have to be very clear with these questions, with the answers for these questions. So then your testing goes through. Right? Now, once at the end of this phase, you will have a list of solutions, right? A list of solutions which will then need to make a decision as to which solution you want to go forward with, depending upon its alignment with your business goals, depending upon its alignment with how efficiently it solves the problem for your customers, the experience you want to create for your customers, and then you take a call on which particular solution you want to go with, right? And then finally, you talk about impact delivery, right? You start thinking about, okay, I have all these solutions, right? How will this change the experience for my customers if we implement it? How will it impact my business goals if we implement a solution? How do I measure the achievement of these goals? Am I even ready for it? What do I need to be careful about if I have to maintain and implement these solutions? And who will benefit the most after the implementation? Am I creating a win-win solution, right, for my customers and for my business? Is it win-win? Or am I spending a whole lot more money than I should normally do, or that I think I will make from my customer, right? This is where your design thinking process stops, right? After this, you take a call on which solution you want to implement, and then you go with your whatever process you want to follow to do your implementation of the solution, your development process, the software development process, your agile process, and all of that will come after this. So design thinking is about having a very clear understanding of the problem that you want to solve, the various approaches that you want to take, figuring out the problems, then converging to find out which is the most important problem to solve, then again diverging to find out what are the different solutions that I can create for this particular problem, and then converging again to arrive at what solution is the best for my customer and for the organization, both. Right? This is where the process stops. Now, I'm just sharing a quick summary of what I just mentioned in here. At a very high level, if you're able to answer those questions, each of those questions itself could have their own process for itself. Like, how do I gather insights from a customer? You could define an entire process, a complete a customer journey or a flow for yourself as to how I will gather insights from my customers. How will I reach out to my customers? What kind of questions will I ask them? What will I measure? How will I measure it? How will I document it? How will I transcribe it? How will I create insights out of it? You could have, for every question, you could have a different whole big process that you would like to follow. But at a very high level, as problem solvers, you need to be aware of this, that this design thinking allows you to have a very clear understanding of the problem so that you can define the right solution for that problem. Okay. So if you see here, if I were to go into the rest of the content that I have in here, I have very specific questions about, like, for instance, my first step is business hypothesis. So there are multiple sub steps inside it. Like, creating a design vision, having a business goal, stakeholder mapping, etc., archetype creation, blah blah blah, and all that. And for each of this, there's a set of questions. So for let's say design vision, I'm asking a question about who should be involved at this stage of the process. I have an example for that too. How many people should be a part of the project from the client side as well as from the design team, etc., etc. How much time is required to deliver the results? So you will find in these slides a very detailed definition of all the questions that you can ask for each of these, let's say, sub steps that is involved in the larger steps of design thinking. And I will share this with you, and that should help you get going. So this is where we stop my introduction to design thinking. We'll take some of the questions that are there either on LinkedIn or on the various other platforms that we have. Before getting on to questions, I would like to recommend a very powerful book by someone whom I admire as well. His name is Dr. Pawan Soni. He is he's an IMB alumni and teaches at IMB too, and he conducts various design thinking workshops for many organizations in India, and one of the I would say prominent thought leaders in the concepts of design thinking. And he's written a very beautiful book called Design Your Thinking. You can see it here. It's called Design Your Thinking. Lovely book for anybody who wants to get on to start using design thinking. The book gives a very, let's say, a simple process and an explanation as to the history of design thinking and why it's important, and how it could be implemented in your daily lives. So I'd like to end here by saying that be it your personal life or your professional life, you can design it. You can design it if you can train your mind to think the right way. If you can design your mind to think the right way. And design thinking process is one such tool that's available for us today to be able to do that. Okay, so this is where I stop, and Harleen, we can open up for questions.
Okay. Thank you so much, Subodh, for that brilliant session. We have a few questions in the Q&A section on Zoom.
Okay,
Yeah. Um,
let's
first,
yeah,
okay.
I'll open it up myself here, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, first one, what's the difference between design thinking and design sprint? All right, so okay, I'm having a, yeah, thank you. So design thinking, like I said, is much before you get into design sprints. Meaning design thinking is where you're figuring out the problem and you're figuring out what is the probable solution for it. Design sprint starts once you have identified your solution, then you start your design sprints to define the design of your solution. It could involve technical, mostly technical sprints, right? So that's your design sprint. So that's an agile implementation that you would like to follow for implementing your product. So design sprint is about execution of the solution, and design thinking is arriving at the solution and telling that this is the solution that we want to do. Okay. Will the presentation slide be shared, since the speaker said it can be used as a reference? Yes, it can be shared. I will share it with Harleen, and she'll figure out a way to make it available for you. How do we consider innovation in design thinking if it's not directly linked to the people using it? How do we consider innovation in design thinking if it's not directly linked to the people using it? No, you have to consider the people using it. So design thinking process, bringing in customer perspective is step number 2. You have to bring in design customer perspective so that you can innovate for them and you as a business. So you don't leave customers out of design thinking. Uh, you always put your thought and innovation, keeping users in mind, need to add value to the user and solve a problem or enrich customer experience. I'm not sure if this is an answer or a question. Um, I didn't get that. Okay. If restaurant user is using a billing machine, it's not linked to the people who might like the billing approach. Just an example, we still implement it with restaurant owner as customer. Is it customer or end user people? Okay. Now, if you were again, you look at it from the perspective of who is putting that billing machine together. So if you are a business owner of a billing machine, owner, you will think about how do I design this product in such a way that it makes my customer's life easy. That is the, let's say, the cashier who's putting the who's doing the billing. You will think of it from that perspective. It could be the billing machine or the software or whatever it is. You will think from the restaurant's perspective, right? But how you can create a different experience is you might be someone who's putting the billing machine together, but you go one step forward and say, okay, my immediate customer is this restaurant owner, but can I go one step forward to think about what value can I create for my end user? So that's where your interaction with your restaurant owner will be very important to understand how can I make your life easier in such a way that you can pass that value down to your consumer, right? So for instance, it could be something like your restaurant owner would say, you know what, give me a software that will print these this content in this way. I mean, I think it should be printed this way, saying, okay, here I want the dishes to be listed. On the right hand side, I want the rate, and at the bottom, I want this the GST information in the total, and that's it. That could be a restaurant's owner's requirement. But at the end of the day, who's this bill being created for? This bill at the end of the day is going to go into my consumer's hand. So it's if the information out there is not clear to the end consumer, he will bring it up with the restaurant owner, isn't it? Therefore, I need to think about my end user too. Is this information presented in a way that is simple for my consumer? My consumer could be anybody. It could be a teenager. It could be a 70-year-old person. Now, is it simple enough for him to understand what's put in there? Is it too confusing? Right? Now, you could bring in value there as a billing machine maker. You could bring in value there, saying that I'm going to provide you information in a very simple way. At the end of the day, this information is there in the restaurant system for your internal stuff. But at the end of the day, I've built this billing printing machine in such a way that it is user friendly, it is end consumer friendly, right? So you should do it. So my recommendation, build it for the end users, because at the end of the day, the bill goes to them. At the same time, make it simpler. Don't make it complex for your restaurant owners to operate and use that tool. Make it simpler for them too. Yeah. Does your institute have a detailed training session by the same speaker? Um, I'll let Harleen answer that. At the moment, I don't have a separate session. It's a masterclass that I conduct on the concept of design thinking. If a need arises, maybe we can think of something. I don't know. Do we, as a product manager, need to have different skills for digital and physical products? Could you name some difference in the two? Okay. So digital products are products which generally are mostly software based, and they're operated either on a laptop or a desktop, or a cell phone, or any other HMI, human machine interface. Physical products are products which are handheld, or which are operated by hand, like your mouse, your shaving razors, your TV remote. These are all physical products. Now, does the product manager have different skills? The concepts of product management remain the same. The skills required to be able to understand your end consumers needs are the same. Whether it is a software or whether it is a physical product like a remote. At the end of the day, you know that you need to create a, a great experience for your customers. What might be helpful is a little bit of technology background pertaining to that industry that might be helpful to accelerate your journey in whichever stream you want to become a product manager in. Okay, someone seems to have answered the question already for the billing process. Thank you very much. And can we have another session for a case study? We could try that, Vallabh. Why not? We could try that. I can work with Harleen to see if we can have a session for a case study. I initially planned to have one today, but then I realized that 2 hours is probably way too less to run through a case study. Maybe we can have one session on design thinking where we take a real life example and then we implement the concepts of design thinking. But I don't think it'll happen in just 2 hours. It's a you'll need to have a workshop to do it. Yeah, so we'll see if we can put a workshop together. Please share references, book name, online website, people, and follow and learn. Yes, Dr. Pawan Soni is a great person to follow. You'll find him on LinkedIn. One of the best books that I found on design thinking is Design Your Thinking by Dr. Pawan Soni. Please refer to it. He also has a website where he posts different articles on the topic of design thinking. Um, these are the ones that I refer to mostly, and has been quite helpful for me. I can share more if anything, if it strikes me, right? I can do that. Okay. Any other questions, Harleen?
No, Subodh, we haven't received any on the other platforms, but we do have some of the attendees here on Zoom in the chat thanking
Yep.
you for the session.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. So I would
Okay.
like you to thank you too. I would like to thank you too. It's always a pleasure. It's always very interesting and insightful. Thank you for your session today, Subodh.
Thank you very much, Harleen. And
And we can look at, we can maybe, discuss conducting a workshop for the same.
we'll do that. Why not?
Yeah, we can do that for sure. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope everyone enjoyed this session, um, yeah, hope we you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can look up my name. It's Subodh Kar, and find it there. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and hope our paths will cross again. Thank you, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Subodh.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Um, we will look at conducting a workshop. We will get in touch with you for the same. A little more information for all our attendees. We've got something cool that we know you love. It's a newsletter by the Institute of Product Leadership. It's a treasure trove of product management, strategy, and leadership tips and insights. You can subscribe to stay updated with the product community. You can find the link for the same in the chat window. We also host various knowledge sharing events just like today's. You can keep up to date with them with the link in the chat. Our next one is on this Monday, which is the 18th of December at 8 p.m. And the topic for that is product management, the right career path for me? It's going to be a 1 hour session on the same topic. I want to thank you all again for being here today, giving us your valuable time. If I could ask, if I could request you to take a few more minutes out of your valuable time to share any feedback, reviews, or questions, I would greatly appreciate it. You can scan the QR code that are on your screen. You can also find a link in the chat where you could leave a review. I'll wait here for a few seconds so that you guys can scan the code. Okay, great. I think that should be enough time. Okay, just a final thank you again to Subodh and to all our attendees for being here. I'm sure everyone's had a fruitful time at this session, and I look forward to hosting you in the future. On
Thank you,
that
Harleen.
note,
Thanks
we
for
can
all the
end.
arrangements. Bye bye. Have a good weekend.
Bye. Thank you, Subodh. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a good day.